Friends, the next session that we have is how to go to the Japanese and Chinese game market. And just to give you a data point, we did a research report in 2011-12 on Japan as a market, as the IT industry. The whole market is about $100 billion US, and what India does is about $5 billion US. And I don't think we have moved up at all. So it's a huge opportunity that we have both in China and Japan. I think to talk about it more, we have Sato-san here from Media Create, and I think he will take us through the next half an hour.
That work?
Slide changer.
Okay. May I start it? Okay, let's start. My name is Sho Sato. I'm from Media Create. I'm a chief analyst at the game marketing firm in Japan. And from now on, I'm going to be talking about how can you reach the Eastern Asian game market like the Japan, China, and Korea. So, but at first, let me introduce my what is my operation, and what is our activity, and what can I help you in Indian game perspective. Firstly, Media Create is the one and only independent game marketing firm in Japan, and we have for 20 years of experience in Japanese game market, and we have close relationship with most Japanese game publishers, like the Nintendo, or Sony, or Square Enix, or Gung-Ho, and so on. But maybe you have some questions for me. Maybe why am I here, or how can I help you? So in order to explain what can I do for you, I would like to make some quotation from the Indian classics. Do you know Kautilya's Arthashastra Sutra? I love this passage, so please forgive me a liberty of reading it in Sanskrit. Pratyaksha, Paroksha, Anmeyam, Hi Rajavritti. Suvayam Durishtan, Pratyaksham. Paropadishtam, Paroksham. Karmasu, Kritena, Akrita, Vakshirnam, Anmeyam. Thank you so much. So anyway, in this first stage, Kautilya says our king or the leader has to take importance on three things. I mean the pratyaksha, I mean the directly perceived, and the second is the paroksha, I mean the indirectly perception, and the third thing is reasoning, I mean the anmeyam. So how can I help you in this, in this point of view? As for the direct perception, I can help you to arrangement of meeting or conference and matching with the game companies. And so through that, you can see the direct information about the local game market, including Japan or China and Korea and so on. Secondly, as for the indirect perception, we can make a kind of a short-term report, weekly or the monthly report about the game industry and market. Third thing, influence, I mean the anmeyam or the reasoning. We can make the kind of three long-term perspective report about the game market, like for example, after 3 years or 5 years, how will the Japanese game market become, or like that. Through these activities, we can help you to reach the Eastern Asian game market. So this is okay. Let me start from the. Today, I'm going to talking about two things. First thing is about the current condition and trend about the Eastern Asian game market. I'm Japanese, so I just want to start at Japan first. But anyway, that's okay. And the second, I'm going to explain about how do you reach Eastern Asian game market. So my time is limited, so I just want to focus on several but very important things for you to understand the Eastern Asian game market. Okay, at first, As you know, Eastern Asian game market is really big. This is our estimate. According to our estimate, the Eastern Asian game market occupies more than 40% of the whole global game market. So it's really a big game market, and it's near the Western game market, including the America or the Europe. But how can I say? It's a kind of the different universe. So Eastern Asian game market is very big, but at the same time, it is really a tough market for international game companies to enter. It is the table of the ranking of the mobile game in each 3 countries. I put the red color on the international game. Just 3 games. Just games published by Supercell. It hit on the top 10 rank. And the rest of them, everything is domestic games published by the domestic companies. So you can understand even the, how can I say, very famous international game publishers like Jenga or the Wuga cannot enter the, how can I say, higher rank. So you have to understand the characteristics of each market before you enter this market. Okay, let's just start on the Japanese game market. We estimate that the total game market in Japan is around $18 billion. And the unique thing of the Japanese game market is that the console game market has a very strong presence. But last year, the mobile game outnumbered the console game. And it's still expanding. So how can I say, the presence of the mobile game market is growing very rapidly. Meanwhile, the PC game, market volume of the PC games is not so big compared to other market. But interesting thing is that many international PC game companies are successful in Japanese game market. So although the market volume is not so big, PC game market is very interesting thing to consider. There are some charts or data about the Japanese game market. Or you don't have to note, or you don't have to take a picture, because if you want to get my slide, please give me a business card or please email me, and then I will send you. So you don't have to memorize, or you don't have to take a note. Anyway, firstly, this is kind of very small. Firstly, the higher penetration of the how can I say, the high teens are the most important sector in native apps, and so ads and later 40s and later, I mean the elder people as a main customers in the how can I say, in some mobile games and PC games. Secondly, as for the proportion of mobile game platform usage, as you know, GREE and DNA was a very great platform, but its scale was decreasing. But now, but still now, this is according to our survey, but how can I say, the percentage of users of GREE and DNA still has a good part of the whole market. But as for the female, LINE is one of the most important game platforms in Japan. As for the proportion of purchase of the games in-game purchasing for apps, in Japan, it has a kind of the unique, or in your viewpoint, it's a kind of a strange way of the in-app purchase called gacha. Gacha is a kind of a random purchase. This random purchase is the most popular method of payment in Japan. But at the same time, recently, native apps, popular native apps, open various ways of the purchasing method, such as the continue or the buying avatar and so on. But still, gacha is very important to be a freemium game, to publish a premium game in Japan. Third thing, let me continue about the indie game scene in Japan. If you are indie game developer, you have to consider on this platform. You can see, I'm sorry, Playism. Playism is a kind of a very interesting platform for PC indie game developer. It is a kind of a combination of the indie game platform and the localizer. So you can put your English games and ask for the translation into Japanese, and so many international indie games successfully launched on this platform. So if you are an indie game developer, you have to be considered about this platform, Playism. And secondly, although it's quite difficult for international platformers to place higher ranks on the app market, but some unique international games like the Goat Simulator or the Cookie Clicker, they don't put so much money on advertisement or sales promotion in Japan, but they get a good, how shall I say, they get a good article from the game media, and they get a good buzz marketing toward the hardcore gamers in Japan, and succeed in attracting some core game users. This is kind of a very few exception of successful case in Japan. Okay, let's go to the Korean game market. Although Korean game market is, according to our estimate, $9 billion, it's around the half of the Japanese game market. But the interesting thing is that PC game hold more than 70% of the whole market. So PC game has a strong presence, but the mobile game is still expanding, which is now more than the 2 billion and so on. So if you are interested in launching both on the PC games or on the mobile games, the Korean game market is give you a very unique opportunity. So let's see next. This is the kind of demographics, demographical data about the Korean game market. Firstly, you have to understand that in Korean game market, the behavior of male game users is completely different from female game users. Yes, even in the other countries, male behavior of male game user is different from that of the female game users. But in Korea, the difference is much larger. You have to understand that. So as for the male game users, many male game users play both PC and mobile games. Meanwhile, as for the female game users, more than 90% of female game users play for example, mobile games. But many players just play the mobile game and don't play the PC game. This is the difference. And also, the difference in the taste of the genre of the game users is different as well. For male users, they like not only casual games, but also RPGs or the board games. But as for the female gamers, they just like the casual games. What is casual game? Like the Anipan, this is a Korean game, and Angry Birds, and many other things. Yeah, it's kind of the casual things. Maybe you can imagine like the not Farmville. Yeah, it's like the Flappy Bird or the Angry Birds and so on. Okay, let's move on to the indie game scene in Korea. Unfortunately, the indie game scene in Korea is still in the initial stage, and still KakaoTalk is very, very strong. You have to understand the strong presence of KakaoTalk. Of course, in the last year or the year before last, other platforms tried to be a second KakaoTalk, but unfortunately, they are not successful. So KakaoTalk is still important. But recently, some indie game movement occurred recently, and a few indie games like this one. This is a Zombie High School. They show up on the app chart and get some degree of success. As for the in order to enter to the Korean market, you have to pay attention to the shutdown law. In Korea, they call it Cinderella law somehow, and which bans the youth player to ban from playing games between midnight to 6 a.m., including PC games, including mobile games. This law was already constitutionalized and confirmed to the legitimate by the court. So you have to understand, in order to reach the youth game users, you have to pay attention to the, how can I say, the governmental movement or the shutdown law. Okay, finally, let's move on to the game market in China. Chinese game market is more than 13 billion, but you have to understand that there are no reliable data about the Chinese game market. 3 or 4 research institutes research about the Chinese game market, but in my opinion, I cannot believe they are the exact, very precise as Chinese Korean game market or the Chinese game, Japanese game market. So, but okay, anyway, but as for the, how can I say, proportion of the each category, it is a kind of very similar things. One of the, how can I say, important things for you to know is that in Chinese game market, PC game still has a strong importance. PC client games and PC browser games has more than 80% or 90% of the whole game market. But recently, the game company who is successful in the PC game market is also entered to the mobile game market. So for the near future, the percentage of mobile games should be expanding. In order to enter the Chinese game market, you have to understand maybe as you know, but there are so many third party about Android. For example, 1 or 2 years ago, it has more than 100 or 200 third-party app store. So it's very difficult to get the market share. But recently, just 360, Baidu, and MyApp start to dominate a large part of the whole market. So if you want to if you want to get a good part of share in Chinese game market, you have to occupy these 3 platforms. And also you have to understand the huge ARPU gaps and some other things like the, how can I say, the limited way of promotion and so on. Okay, this is the data about the mobile game users in China. Firstly, the mobile game users in China are young and their revenue is low compared to PC game users. So yeah, usually the elder people or the business people don't pray so much about the mobile game, which is different from Korean market and the Japanese game market. And the second thing is that as for OS, Android has nearly 70% of the whole market share. So the market share of iOS is decreasing. So you have to make the Android games in order to enter Chinese game market. As for the indie game scene, like Korea, now the Chinese indie game development scene is, how can I say, now in the initial stage. Recently, the Chinese game companies are struggling for getting popular international IPs in Western countries and Japan to acquire game users. But you have to understand that how can I say, the governmental regulation is very important, and sometimes the changing regulation by government completely change the ecosystem of Chinese mobile game market. Recently, I heard the Chinese government say to make the new regulation for the mobile game in the next year. So they don't say the concrete thing about the how can I say, regulation, But I think it should be the very, I heard, according to the many Chinese game companies, they say the new regulation will change, radically change the Chinese mobile game market. So you have to pay attention to the government